First, let's look at anonymous route access. Anonymous route refers to a route that is dynamically generated without a route name. Let's start by creating the Bloc Anonymous app. Install Flutter Bloc in the pubspec.yaml file and comment include line of the analysis options.yaml file so that the default lint rule will not be applied. Before we start coding, let's take a look at the UI configuration. There is a Show Me Counter button and Increment Counter button in the My Homepage widget on the left. Click the Show Me Counter button to move to the Show Me Counter widget on the right. At this time, move using navigator.push and material page route. Clicking the Increment Counter button increments the counter value displayed in the Show Me Counter widget. Since it is a simple app, let's start after making the basic structure of the app. I created the counter qubit. The count state is the same as the count state you have seen many times before. It is a super simple counter qubit. You have seen it many times already, so I don't think it needs an explanation. Let's go to main.dart. Give anonymous route as a title and hide the debug banner. Delete the My Homepage state of widget that is created when the app is created and made My Homepage a stateless widget. Give the scaffold body a center widget that has a column widget as a child. For the column widget, give center as the main axis alignment so that the children can be displayed in the center of the screen, and give an elevated button as the first child with the button title Show Me Counter, then moves to the Show Me Counter widget when pressed. After giving a size box of height 20.0 to give it some space, I created an elevated button whose button title is Increment Counter and will increase the counter value displayed in the Show Me Counter widget when it is pressed. Now an empty function is assigned to unpressed. Let's go to Show Me Counter.dart. Since we are going to use the block builder widget, we imported Flutter Bloc in advance. Show Me Counter widget is a stateless widget that displays the counter value with font size 50.0 in the center of the screen. Currently, the static string 0 is displayed. Go to main.dart and wrap My Homepage widget with the counter qubit type block provider and create the counter qubit instance in the create callback. In onPressed, call the incremental function of the counter qubit instance using the static method of block provider. Go to the Show Me Counter widget. Wrap the text widget with the block builder and modify subject to counter and block to qubit. Since state is counter state, replace 0 with state.counter. I ran the emulator to test. I went to the app and clicked the Show Me Counter button, but nothing came up on the screen. When I checked the debug console, an error occurred. I'll increase the debug console to make it easier to see the error message. There are 3 possible errors mentioned. The first one is not the case because we did a hard restart. And the third, build context has no problem this time. So this time, the provider you are trying to read is in a different route. Providers are scoped, so if you insert a provider inside a route, then other routes will not be able to access that provider. Seems to apply. Let's see what this means with an image. So, Command-Shift-P, select Dart Open DevTools, run the Open Widget Inspector page, and look at the current widget tree. As you can see in the image, Show Me Counter is not a child of block provider, but a direct child of material app as a sibling of block provider. This is why I can't find counter qubit even when I do block provider.of counter qubit context in Show Me Counter. In other words, block provider and Show Me Counter are not a parent-child relationship. So what should we do? Before answering right away, if you look at the definition of material app, it says a convenience widget that wraps a number of widgets that are commonly required for material design applications. One of them is a navigator widget. When we say navigator.push, we can think of it as a new widget tree, not a child widget. Therefore, if you want to access counter from Show Me Counter widget, you need to do a separate operation to access the counter that you have created previously. In this case, the value named constructor is used. The value constructor should be used when providing access to a class that already exists in the new subtree. Another thing to remember is that the value constructor does not automatically close the class. In this example, this is what we want, because my homepage still needs counter. We will modify the first elevated button of my homepage using the value named constructor. Wrap the show me counter widget with block provider.value and give the value a counter qubit instance using context.read. Let's run it after hard restart, but the same error as before occurred. Why is that? That's because of the context. The context used for material page route is independent of the context above. That is, the context used for navigator.push. The context value you should use should be the context value used in the navigator.push. However, the context of the material page route was obscured. So let's change the context of material page route to a different name. Let's modify the context of a material page route to a counter context and run it after hard restart. As you can see here, both buttons are set to show me counter. Let's change the title of the second button to increment counter and test again. An error did not occur when show me counter was pressed, and when I went back to show me counter after pressing increment counter a few times, it was displayed normally. It is now running as desired. To go one step further, counter context was not used, so I will try to replace counter context with underscore and run it. Go to show me counter, click on increment counter a few times, then go back to show me counter, press increment counter once again, and go back to show me counter. The app works normally. Now that we know about anonymous route access, we will learn about named route access.